All right. So we're looking at the article Loss of Culturally Vital Cattle Leaves Dinka Tribe Adrift in Refugee Camps, Excerpt 1. So this is our first excerpt. Excerpt 2 will be in your on your exam tomorrow. Okay. So before we start, I want to look at a few vocabulary words that I have highlighted. So the first word is ovulating. So if you don't know this, you want to type it on your document somewhere. Ovulating means howling. Oops, I didn't.
Like sounds.
Yeah, I highlighted the wrong word. Here we go. So, the next word we have is compound. And a compound is housing for many people or a group of shelters or houses. And our last word is dowry. That is a gift. It's usually property or money. And is brought by a bride to her husband's family when they marry. So those are our three terms for today. So I will start with paragraph 1. I will read paragraph 1 and we will discuss the gist of the paragraph. So what the paragraph is mostly about. So it says the dancing begins at 7:25 a.m. as the thump of a drum splits the cool morning air in the Mangalator camp for the displaced. A bull's horn wails, a swell of song fills the air. Young men run and leap, legs splayed, Jordanesque, heads rising above the hopping, singing, chanting, ululating crowd. All right, what is this paragraph mostly about?
I guess they have celebration.
Yes, exactly. So there is a celebration.
Yeah, it starts at 7:35.
All right, and so just more details. So they began early in the morning at 7:25. How do you know that there's a celebration? What keywords tell you that there's a celebration going on?
Oh, dancing.
Okay, so we have the dancing. What other things in there?
Crowd.
So there's
Singing.
singing, chanting. There's a crowd. So we know that's right. Dancing. So we know that something is going on. So people are celebrating. Great job. All right, let's move on to paragraph 2. Hundreds of Dinka tribesmen and women have gathered at the Duke Fuel family compound for a traditional dowry celebration. But the occasion is marred by what is missing. There will be no cattle given to the Duke Fuel family today, historically the central transaction at this ritual. What is this paragraph mostly about?
I had a hard time understanding that little paragraph.
Okay, so you had a hard. Okay. All right, so we know that there are a lot of people here. So hundreds of Dinka tribesmen and women. Okay. They're at the compound, which was one of our key words, for the traditional dowry celebration. So we know that there's a celebration. I'm going to put the dowry celebration because that's very important to this article. So if we look back at our definition, oops, my bad. So if we look back at our definition, a dowry is a gift, usually property or money, brought by the bride to her husband's family when they marry. So in this case, so they're having the dowry celebration, but they don't have any cattle to give. And I believe I mentioned to you all in previous lessons that like the more cattle you have, like the more wives, and you could purchase, wives and stuff, but they don't have any cattle to give. They're still having a celebration, but they don't have any cattle to give as part of this celebration. And this is, like they said, it's a central transaction at this ritual. So it's something that they do all of the time. All right. Our next paragraph. The Duke Fuels must settle instead for cautious promises. The family whose boy wants to marry a Duke Fuel girl vows to give plenty of cattle when the 4-decade-old war in this Africa's largest country someday ends. We will honor our agreement, the boy's uncle says. All right. What is this paragraph mostly about?
I thought if the guy wants to marry a woman, the guy has to have some cattle.
Okay. Keep going. Were you about to?
That's
Okay. So if the guy wants to marry, he has to have cattle, but because they don't, they make promises. So it says the Duke Fuels must settle instead for cautious promises because in the previous paragraph, there were no cattle to give. All right. So here, the family can only make promises. But in the next paragraph, it says, for all its joy, the dowry ritual reminds the Dinka families that the war has robbed them of a symbol central to their identity and culture, cattle. So what is this sentence basically saying?
that someone is probably tell you rather than think of some of your cattle.
Right. So basically the Dinka families have no cattle because they were taken away from them. They were robbed, stolen in these raids that we talked about in our previous article. I'm going to say, let me add that to this because they were taken away. All right. Next. Are we ready? Okay. Mabille Duke Fuel sits in the family compound next to his niece, Nyandir Duke Fuel, 17. Joining them are Mabille's brother Mayar, and another niece, Ego. Both girls will marry soon, although the next day's dowry ceremony is primarily for Nyandir. Right. What is this paragraph mostly about?
So the other two girls will be married soon.
Okay. But the celebration is for Nyandir. Okay. Let's go ahead and move to the next paragraph. Right. The men say the absence of cattle has transformed the dowry process. Negotiations, which are agreements or discussions, used to be held in which the boy's family agreed to give cows, sometimes as many as 100, to the Dinka girl's relatives. Several families would make such overtures, which are proposals or offers, toward a single girl in a process akin, which means similar to, competitive bidding. All right, so take a moment, look over this paragraph closely because this may be one of the more difficult paragraphs, and then see if you can tell me what you think this paragraph is mostly about. So just take a moment.
Like, if you want to marry like Baker women, so you gotta pay like 100 cow to marry or something.
It's like they. It's like as me. If I want that girl, if you want that girl, it's like debating how many cows you can give that family if you really want to marry that woman.
Right. So they have to negotiate, like I said, they have to negotiate these marriages. And so they would bid on a girl, like you said. If both of you all wanted to marry Alicia, y'all had to come up with, she looked at me, the, you had to come up with like the most cows. All right. Sorry, Alicia, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. All right. So let's see. So we have the men. I'm putting competitive bidding in quotes because I took it directly from the text. So men negotiate dowries for the marriage of women, and they used to offer numerous cattle in a process like competitive bidding.
That's kind of sad though
That,
for a woman, you know, over there.
that's how they're forced to
That's like really sad.
be married, like how they're forced to be married, and it's kind of like maybe you don't have a choice of what man you're going to marry. You're kind of like being auctioned.
That's like no love, like you know. That's like it's like going for the money, you know, instead of like going for like
For
instead. But if I was in that situation, I don't even care.
But it's a cultural thing. So you said you wouldn't care, but if it's something that
I wouldn't even do it for my daughter, you know, because that's like it's like me. I'm taking advantage. There's like money, you know, or cattle. But when when I help me at all, the only thing that matters the most, that woman or daughter wants to be happy, what she who she loves. You know what I mean?
Adam, you agree?
People didn't think that way.
That's like really sad for them.
Mm-hmm.
Cow.
You're gonna marry me for a cow. You're gonna send me off for a cow.
Stay home. Cow. Wow.
And so, if you remember in A Long Walk to Water, I think it was one of the first couple chapters that talked about how the husband had many wives. So in order to have many wives, you have to be rich. You have to have a lot of cattle, you know. And
what's the point of having more? The point, you just need one. Right.
But in some cultures, it's okay to have more than one wife.
Read the Bible.
In my culture too. I mean, in my religion, not a culture. In my religion, you can have four, no more than four.
You can't no more than four?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I like one. Because if you're having four, like you buy something, you gotta give all of them equal. If you miss one, can be like you got punishment for that. You got like if I buy like something laptop or anything for the another person, I have to buy them all, four of them all.
Interesting.
Anything, all of them equal.
Damn.
Interesting. So you can't like.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like just get one and then stay happy. Yeah.
So I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but a student asked when we were reading the first couple of chapters, they were wondering like, do all the wives? I don't know if you know the answer. Like, stay together? Do they stay in separate housing? Do you know how that works?
That would be weird if I lived with all four. I don't know.
You don't know? Okay, that's fine. I just thought you had a little bit of background knowledge. I thought, so I was like, I didn't know, but at least I do know now, like, they all have to be treated equally. So, all right. Like groceries for one.
You're talking about the house, how are you going to keep them or something?
Yes. Yeah. So, do they live together?
Okay. So, you have a bigger house, right?
Uh-huh.
So, you marry like 2 or 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is separate house.
Okay.
Okay, so you gotta treat them equally and everything equal. Even if you have a kid, you gotta give them everything equal. Kid,
so all of them have to
equal. Like you cannot like
wow.
One and then equal.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm going to share that with my morning group because.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's why like just marry one and then keep your kid like equal to your wife and everything. Right? That's the better one to just have them full and then. Yeah, before you need a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to be rich or something. You need to have a lot of money to keep it up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing. All right. So we have a couple more paragraphs left. Okay. It says nowadays, the negotiations are still held, but they are about handshakes and pledges. There is no livestock available to change hands. So what is this paragraph mostly saying?
Is it like when you act like a deal, like I reach my hand, another guy reaches their hand, it's like agreement now?
Okay, so when...
It's like no turning back. There's already a deal.
So they keep their promise by shaking hands or through handshakes and not exchanging cattle. Okay. And our final paragraph, holding the ceremony without cattle, Mabel says, reminds Dinkas that they have no property. You cannot regain your land, he says through an interpreter. That is a great loss. We hope our leaders are working hard to get us back our land. So what is this paragraph mostly stating?
So their island was stolen? No?
So this paragraph, yeah, basically that it's just basically saying that the Dinkas, they don't have any land.
Oh, they stole it. Oh, no, right.
They don't have any land. They don't have any cattle. And so
that's why they had a war with the North.
Well, in the beginning, and I think Adam, I think you contributed to this before when we're talking about the when they began fighting for religion and the Muslim religion and Christianity, and they didn't want to be converted to Islam, Muslim. So that's part of it, and then this is also part of the raids and stealing the cattle is another part of what's going on and why people are at war. So there are a couple of things going on.
Like Khartoum government attacked Dinka village just because of the religion or something. They forced them to be Muslim.
Yeah, they're forcing to be Muslim, and so that's how like the war began. That's what it was pretty much. Over not just the stealing of the cattle, but being forced to come. Yeah, being forced to change their religion, and they didn't want to.
Is it so expensive to buy cattle?
Is it what?
Is it so expensive to buy one? Like cattle?
Is it expensive?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. But some people, they have the money to it. But if they're stealing them, they may not even have the money to purchase. If you have to, steal the cattle, and they're just stealing from each other, and they're fighting. So, all right. So the last part of this assignment is our summary. So just taking everything that you've read, all of our gists, and can we just come up with a summary? I don't know if you've written yours yet. A summary of what this excerpt is about. So if you want to take a moment, let's work together to come up with a summary. Does anybody have anything they would like to share out?
I was trying to make a sentence, but I don't know how to make it into a sentence. I was trying to make the thing I had.
We'll start with the Dinkas. Okay. Keep going. It's a great way to start.
They always be betting with a different type of woman that they're trying to marry.
Yeah, let me make this bigger. So the Dinkas, you said they are bidding?
Yeah, they're bidding with women.
So you're saying that they bid for women?
Yeah, for women. I say how many cows they can.
So they bid for their wives.
Yeah.
Okay.
So even you have to bid for women, like if somebody have like more cow than the other one, so you can marry them.
Right. So the Dinkas bid for their wives using cattle. But what's the problem here? What's the main problem in this article?
So they got no land at this point.
So
let's look at the other tribes be stealing all their stuff. Their cattle, they have no land to live on.
So they don't pay money, only cattle.
And the land was taken away because of the wars, so because of the fighting. Since they can't use cattle, how do they go about getting their wives? What did it say that they did?
Promises.
Instead? Yep.
What's the promises like?
So the promises are to give cattle in the future whenever they can get cattle. Once the war ends, that they can give cattle in the future. So that's their promise.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, I know that's gonna happen. It's like
that's like a loan.
Yeah, it's like a loan.
So basically that's what this is about. Yeah, so the Dinkas, they bid for their wives using cattle. Since their cattle have been stolen and the land taken away due to war, they can only make promises to give cattle in the future. And that's our summary. Any questions about this text? All right. So that is the end of the lesson. And just be here tomorrow for the assessment. If not, you can always do it online.